one of the most controversial breakdowns. One of the most controversial breakdowns I've probably ever done. Because in this live, I'm going to try and predict Bo Nickal's hype train ending and being ended by Reinier de Ridder. And in all honesty, in my head, I thought I would be alone in this decision. I honestly thought maybe potentially I could be the only person who might feel this way. And I saw that even on Tabology. Um, I mean, even the odds reflect how close this fight might potentially be. I remember a time where Bo Nickal said that against Hamza Chimaev, he would be a minus 2,000 favorite or something like that. How times have changed when Michael Vezi. I have RDR winning this fight. Yeah, I'm with you, my guy. I'm with you. So I'm going to actually try to break down this particular fight and actually explain why I picked Reinier de Ridder, to be honest. So back to what I was saying, there was a time whereby Bo Nickel was saying that he would be a minus 2,000 favorite against Hamza Chimaev, and yet he's a minus 278 favorite against Renier Derrida, which just goes to show how little faith people have in his ability to actually win this fight. I mean, it's still pretty decent odds for Bonico, but still, for him to go from being a minus 1,000, minus 1,500 favorite to then becoming a minus 278 against the number 13 ranked fighter in the middleweight division is pretty sad. You know, especially considering he was like, I'm going to be a minus 2,000 against Hamza Chimaev, which was delusional to begin with. I'm surprised that he's the favorite, but we'll cash in on those odds early. Yeah, so let's get to the fight, right? Reinier Derrida is a former two division champion and one championship, if I'm not mistaken. Early in his UFC career, I think his first fight. Let's actually take a look at the two fights that he's had in the UFC, and see how he did. Because I remember early, especially in his debut. Sorry about that. I remember early in his debut, he didn't look particularly great against Gerald Meerschot. Um, I was a little bit more critical of him in that particular fight, but he ended up submitting the guy with some of the most from some of the biggest or rather the most submissions, I think, one in the middleweight division, if I'm not mistaken, and then submitted Kevin Holland in the first round. And in the Kevin Holland fight, um, um, let me respond to your comments before I proceed. Rifler, this is the most affordable line betting wise that we have ever seen. Bob, Bo, bro, oh, autocorrect. It's not me, it's you. Okay, so Renier Derrida then came back and looked impressive against Kevin Holland. However, I mean Kevin Holland looks trash. As long as you can wrestle, Kevin Holland is not gonna look particularly great against anyone. So he came back and looked good, right? So the Raider fought Gerald Meerschot. He fought Kevin Holland. Let's look at who Bo Nickel has fought, right? Level of competition. Um, Bo Nickel fought Jamie Pickett. I don't know if it's worth mentioning. He fought Val Woodburn, who is yet to have a win in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. And then fought Cody Brandage, who's pretty decent but still not great, never been ranked. And then fought Paul Craig, who is actually a pretty decent win for him. However, how he won is the problem for me. it showed me that Bo Nickel is scared of people who can do what he does on the ground, right? And that's a massive, massive red flag for me. In the Paul Craig fight, it showed me that if you can submit, not just wrestle, not just wrestle, but if you can submit, the probability is Bo Nickel is going to avoid going to the ground with you. Right, we saw that against Paul Craig. Whereas with Reinier Derrida, he actually ended up submitting Gerald Mearshart when he when he went into a fight with someone who is one of the most prolific like who has one of the best submissions in the middleweight division, in Gerald Mearshart. Reinier Derrida actually submitted him, right, in his second fight in the UFC. And Reinier Derrida is ranked number 13 in his second fight in the UFC. I know you can say, well, Bo Nickel is still early in his career as an MMA fighter, which is a solid point. But I'm not going to look at that. And actually, that's actually an argument to support not picking him, right? Because if your argument is like, yeah, of course, Bo Nickel hasn't fought the highest level of competition, and Bo Nickel is not ranked, obviously because he's still early in his career, then it actually supports my point to say, or then Renier Derrida is probably going to win this one, right? One of the biggest issues I had before I break down the fight and how I think it's going to play out, I'm going to emphasize this and repeat this. Bo Nickel against Paul Craig decided to strike, and he wasn't that great at it. He decided to strike, right? So that shows me he doesn't have a lot of confidence in his wrestling. As much as he would like us to believe he has confidence, he doesn't have as much confidence in his wrestling. Otherwise, he would have taken down Paul Craig and found a way to submit him. I mean, if Brandon Allen could do it, that basically means uh, what Bo Nickel's strategy was. Basically told me that it means Brandon Allen could potentially submit Bo Nickel because Brandon Allen was able to do something to Paul Craig that Bo Nickel couldn't. Right? So for me, that was the biggest red flag. If you are telling us that you are better than Hamza Chimaev, then you should have been able to take down Paul Craig and submit him, right? Instead, he decided to just strike and strike in a way that's not very impressive. If you put Hamza Chimaev and Bo Nickel in the same octagon and say kickbox, no wrestling, Hamza Chimaev is going to knock him out, right? So for me personally, that was the biggest red flag. And now let's get to the breakdown of the fight. Okay, on the feed, I think as far as finishing abilities, I think both of them have good finishing abilities, but Renier Derrida is a little bit better at finishing fights. Let's see who has the reach advantage. It's Renier Derrida. So as far as striking goes, that's going to be an advantage. I know Renier Derrida does not have the best striking, but the reach is going to help. Renier Derrida also throws a little bit more volume, not too much more than Bo Nickel, but he throws a little bit more volume. It's not like Bo Nickel is the best striker in the UFC, so I'm not particularly worried about that. Obviously, between the two of them, if I were to choose who I think is the slightly better of the two at striking, I'd say maybe Bo Nickel is a little bit better, but he's very non-threatening if you are able to actually take him down and submit him. If he thinks you can submit him, then his striking, he turns into someone who is a striker who's avoiding a grappler. That's how he fought Paul Craig. So I anticipate that the same thing will potentially happen in this particular fight. I anticipate that Bo Nickel will potentially come in number one. Either he's going to try and prove to us that he is actually a good wrestler and try to take the fight to the ground. And I don't think it's going to go too well for him. Renier Derrida has like he has the best so far. From what I've seen, Renier Derrida is good at defending takedowns. So, and we're not just talking about any average wrestler or grappler. We're talking about someone who can submit him. So if Bo Nickel keeps on being consistent and trying to take him down, he's going to get caught in something and get submitted. So if he persists to take the fight to the ground, I'm confident in Reinier Derrida's ability to actually defend the takedowns and actually try to keep the fight on the feet. At this point, we don't know how good Bo Nickal's takedown defense is. I would assume it's decent, obviously purely because of the fact that he is a pretty decent wrestler. But however, ultimately, that takedown defense has not been tested, and especially when you consider that image of. I remember criticizing Bo Nickel when he still had hype before the Paul Craig fight. When Bo Nickel still had hype, I remember criticizing his performance against Jamie Pickett, and I was like, if you look at Bo Nickel in that particular fight, he started to breathe a little bit heavy because Jamie Pickett was doing a couple of right things, obviously up until he ended up submitting him, but in that fight, it looked like Bo Nickel was about to gas out to some extent, right? And then came the Woodburn fight. Obviously, he performed well, and then came the Cody Brandage fight. In that fight, I told people that people were like first round, first round. I was like, nah, it's not gonna be the first round, man. Like Bo Nickel is going to struggle. He might finish it in the second round, but it's not going to be the first round. The breakdown is somewhere on the channel. Go to the live section. You'll find my breakdown of this particular of the fight between um, Cody Brandage, but it's in a collection of all the predictions. I never used to break them down individually. But the point I was trying to make was that I knew Bo Nickel would struggle against Cody Brandage, and the fact that Cody Brandage was able to basically chuck him to the floor, that is a bad image for someone who's supposed to have good takedown defense for me, right? That how Bo Nickel was thrown onto, like when he was trying to take down Cody Brandage, and how he was tired. If Cody Brandage was half decent, he would have been able to upset Bo Nickel because Bo Nickel was tired in that second round, and Cody Brandage is notorious for giving up, right? So at some point, I'm sure that he came in with the I want to prove a point, and then in the second round, he was like, you know what, I'm tired. Bo Nickel, you can win, you know. So I don't think that's gonna happen with Reinier Derrida. So as far as takedown defense, I don't think Bo Nickel is particularly good at taking people down. Look at the fight with Cody Brandage. That should tell you a lot about Bo Nickel's ability to take people to the ground. And his takedown defense might be suspect if you know how to take people down, right? So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So as far as the ground, I think Reinier Derrida is going to be shooting a lot more than Bo Nickel. I think both of them have more or less the same amount of success as far as takedowns go. Just that the difference is Reinier Derrida shoots a lot more than Bo Nickel. So I'm going to lean on the fact that Reinier Derrida is going to shoot probably twice as much as Bo Nickel is going to shoot for takedowns, right? It also comes down to I just hope that Reinier Derrida does not decide to want to become a striker unless he has been actually working on it, because of the two of them, I can agree that Bo Nickel might be the one who's probably going to be able to win a point decision. But if it comes down to who's going to submit who, I'm leaning towards Reinier Derrida, to be honest. I think he's defensively good. I think he's offensively good. He's shown that he can submit someone who is also good at submitting people, like Gerald Mearshart. Bo Nickel has not submitted anyone dangerous. He had that opportunity against Paul Craig, and he went to a boring decision with him. So that's a bad sign for me. So, and as far as striking goes, let's see how it plays out. So Reinier Derrida has volume. Reinier Derrida has the reach advantage. So I think that's going to play a huge factor. As far as defense, I think both of them are pretty decent at avoiding getting hit. Obviously, Bo Nickel might be a little bit better, especially considering the level of competition that he's faced. Obviously, he's not going to, or rather, he's going to look like he has good striking defense if you're fighting Val Woodburn, who Rifler just mentioned was cut by the UFC. Um, if you're fighting people like Jamie Pickett, if you're fighting people like Cody Brandage, Paul Craig. So obviously you look like you know how to strike. So Reinier de Reda, of course, he looked like trash as far as striking goes. But look at who he was fighting. He was fighting Gerald Mearshart. He was fighting Kevin Holland. So obviously he's going to look trash. And obviously, even in one championship, he didn't look particularly great as far as striking goes. But I think both of them, their striking ability comes from people being afraid to grapple with them, right? I don't think Reinier de Reda is going to be afraid to grapple with Bo Nickal. I do think that Bo Nickal is going to be afraid to grapple with Reinier de Reda. So in all honesty, I'm not gonna sit down. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys and say, well, I'm super confident in Reinier de Reda. I'm not. But my reasoning for picking Reinier de Reda is number one. Reinier de Reda has a bit more volume on the feet, so he's going to throw more than Bo Nickal. Reinier de Reda has the reach advantage, so if we are talking about two grapplers who are going to be throwing, every little advantage is going to count in that kind of fight because it's not like Hamza Chima, it's not like Bo Nickal is Israel Adesanya, right? We're not talking about Israel Adesanya. We're talking about two strikers, two grapplers who normally have success because people think they're going to take them down. Even in the fight with Val Woodburn, I'm willing to bet that if Val Woodburn didn't have any fears of being taken down and getting submitted, he probably wouldn't have gotten knocked out. I know that he's not particularly great, but it's an established thing. It's the Habib method basically. If you can scare someone into thinking, I'm going to take you down and I'm going to submit you, you are going to be able to strike with that person because they are not focused on just striking. They are also focused on he might shoot at any time. I need to be ready to sprawl or something like that. So I think their success, both of them, their success on the feet has come from people being afraid to to grapple with them. In this fight, the guy who's probably going to be afraid is going to be Bo Nickel, in my opinion, to grapple. So Reinier de Reda is going to have the reach advantage. Reinier de Reda is going to throw a lot more than Bo Nickel. As far as defense, I think both of them are pretty decent. Although if you were to press me and say who's going to be better defensively, it's probably going to be Bo Nickel based on his performances so far from the contender series up until Paul Craig. He seems like he's a little bit decent as far as defense goes, right? So, but all in all, I'm leaning towards Reinier de Reda. Like I said, on the feet, and then I'll summarize even on the ground. On the feet, he has the reach, he has the volume, and decent defense. Bo Nigel, the only advantage he might have on the feet is maybe technical striking and defense. But I don't think the fight is only going to play out on the feet. On the ground, I think the Raider is going to shoot twice as much takedowns as Bo Nigel might. I think the Raider is really good defensively on the ground. So Bo Nickel is going to struggle to take him down. And if he makes a mistake, he's going to get caught into something. So for me personally, I'm weighing up the advantages that each has. And I just feel like Renier de Reda's reach on the feet, volume, and decent defense as far as striking, combined with the amount of takedowns that the Raider shoots, his takedown defense, the fact that he was able to actually submit someone dangerous like Gerald Mearshart, whereas Bo Nigo decided to strike with Paul Craig, just goes to tell me who is more confident in their grappling abilities, right? I just think. I just think Rene de Reda is going to be better here. My subscribers went with Bo Nickel. I don't blame them. It's a coin flip at this particular point in time, and that's why the odds are the way they are. And which is sad for Bo Nickel because he came from being minus 1.2 thousand favorite to being a minus 278, which just goes to show how little confidence people have in him as of today. So yeah, that's my pick. I'm going Renier de Reda. I don't have confidence in Bo Nickel. My subscribers went with Bo Nickel. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let me reply to you guys so that I can go to Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. I think people will be shocked on how overrated Nickal is and how underrated RDR is. I honestly agree with you, man. Who's this? Michael Vezi. I agree with you, Rifler. Val Woodburn got cut from the UFC. Yeah, yeah, that's actually something I didn't actually know that he got cut. Rifler Bo has a sloppy takedown entries. Yeah, that's another thing that stresses me about him. That's why I didn't pick him. Nigga, yo, take my name, brother. Um, Rifler Reinier has good dash choke. Yeah. So if he shoots sloppily, he's going to get caught. Michael Vezi, RDR is like the Temu version of Still Knox. He has a sloppy takedowns, and when he punches, he sloppily throws for the fences. You mean RDR or Bonigo? Rifle depends if he can sprawl on time. Yeah, that's true. Michael Vezi, I'm praying for a high level grappling fight. Hopefully, Bo doesn't coward, but out of a grappling sprawl, and let's see who's better. I honestly want to see that as well. Rifler, Reinier the Rizzler come back. Let's see this weekend if the Rizzler comes back. That was actually a good name. You should go back to that. Um, yeah, that concludes my breakdown for this particular fight. I don't think I've made a solid enough point, but I've given my reasons for picking Reinier Derrida. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. It might end up being one of the best grappling matches we've ever seen at middleweight. If Bonigo is not too scared to engage in the grappling exchanges, and I'd give the advantage to Reinier. Derrida has had more experience with MMA grappling, so I mean, even if you're grappling, you have to also remember that punches are included there. It's not collegiate wrestling. It's MMA wrestling. There are ways that you can do things that you won't be able to do in collegiate wrestling. Obviously, I'm not saying Bo Nickal can't wrestle, can't do MMA wrestling, but I mean, Derrida has had two championships at one championship, which I think is one of the other best promotions outside of the UFC. PFL and Bellator, I think, is probably number three. Anyway, I'm going to break down Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Join me there. I love and appreciate all of you. Until then, deuces.